Good morning. Welcome. I'm Bhuvan for StudyIQ IAS English, and this is the editorial edge. 30 to 40 minutes, 3 topics, an intensive look at those 3 topics is what we will do in today's class. Okay. I once again welcome each one of you, those who are joining me live and those who will be eventually watching me in the course of the day. Right. For the regular watchers, before we begin, may I please request you, if you could kindly go ahead and share the stream with those of your friends who would likely benefit out of this whole exercise that we do here every morning, right? Okay, so the topics that we're looking at today, without wasting any time, the first one is Chariot scroll painting. Now, why are we discussing this? Because again, the just culminated G20 that we had, okay, the spouses of the dignitaries that were attending, so they went and they paid a visit to the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, Pusa, New Delhi, and there they were given certain mementos, gifts, and one of them was the Chariot scroll painting. And well, it's a very dying form of art which has been rejuvenated of sorts. So we will take a look at the Chariot scroll painting as well as what exactly does it, and so what exactly is the point of it. Okay, because eventually my students, you have to realize that all of these paintings, scrolls, or whatever art form that we discuss, they're a part of a form of storytelling. So we need to understand that. We'll take a look at Chariot scroll painting, number 1. Number 2, we'll take a look at the reservoir levels, and in India, the Central Water Commission has released its estimates, and well, they are not looking good. Okay, why? Because well, we are experiencing a rainfall deficit. El Nino is in operation. Okay, it is gaining strength as we speak, and what was obviously considered that it will be balanced out by, say, the positive Indian Ocean dipole, that hasn't happened so far. Okay, so again, if these are new terms for you as to what El Nino is, how is it related to Indian monsoons, what is Indian Ocean dipole, don't worry, stick around, we'll take a look at that. And the third topic that I have for you is the Tonga Volcano, an underwater volcano. Okay, and so we'll just take a brief look at what exactly is the issue, and what are the differences, say, when a volcanic eruption, when the magma so rises, when the lava so rises, okay, and then eventually if it is coming out slowly, versus if it comes out at a larger, say, a velocity. There is a difference that is observed underwater. Okay, one of them is extremely explosive. So we'll seek to understand the Tonga volcano, right? Coder, your neighbor, Arka, Bhagyashri, Kalyan, Pranjul. Guys, thank you guys for joining. Good morning to all of you. So let's begin. I have questions also for you today. And so the MCQs that we were missing in yesterday's class, we'll restart that as we always do. Okay, let's get started then. Right, so this is my Instagram ID. If you have any particular doubts related to, say, environment, geography, CSAT, or international relations, I'd be able to help you there. And this is my email ID. If you have any particular doubts that you'd like to elaborate on, go ahead, quickly connect with me. Whereas this is the Telegram handle where you'll find the PDF of this entire lecture uploaded at around noon. And you also see that we do a lot of good work here in terms of, say, the question-based output that a student is required to have. Okay, so I'd suggest go ahead, connect with these platforms. Right, let's get started then. So with the photo that you see in front of me, this gentleman here, his family is one of the last remaining families who go ahead and, say, are involved in the Chariot scroll painting. So let's understand first the basics around it. What exactly is the Chariot scroll painting? Now, it's a type of, say, a form of Nakashi art, okay? And what you're looking at is, we'll understand it this way. You go to a movie, okay? And you have, say, the movie reels that are, in the olden times at least, you had movie reels that were, say, mounted on the projector, and the image of that was reflected on the screen for all of us to view and enjoy, okay? The basic of the Chariot scroll painting is similar. What you're looking at is, it is in reel format, okay? It's in reel format and it comes reel by reel. What they do, in fact, now in the movie projector, you have, say, the whole reel that is mounted on a projector and then the image is reflected, okay? Whereas in the Chariot scroll painting, scroll obviously gives you that it is a continuous form. It is mounted on a tree, and then you have the whole scrolls that is displayed in front of the villagers. It is native to Telangana, by the way. So let's look at it, okay? At present, it is being made only in Hyderabad, Telangana, and well, they're in a narrative format, essentially a storytelling format, much like a film roll or a comic strip, depicting stories. Now, what are the stories that are, say, depicted on the Chariot scroll painting. So you're looking at, say, epics, Puranas, and these are, say, mixed with the tales of daily life. Say a person going and working in the fields, or a house lady working in her house playing with her children. All of that are amalgamated with the stories of Puranas and epics. Okay, so the Chariot scroll painting, please understand two things straight away. Number one, it is a form of storytelling. Okay, you are looking at a scroll that is prepared, scroll something like this, and so you have, say, floral demarcations here. Okay, this is scroll painting number one, this is scroll painting number two. Here you have a particular motif that has been displayed, here you have another motif that is displayed. All of that is mounted on a tree, the villagers sitting, enjoying all of that in the olden times. That was essentially the essence of Chariot scroll painting. Okay, at present, they have the geographical indication status that has been given to them by the geographical tag registry, okay, the GI tag registry. Now, the informed students, you will straight away know, headquartered in Chennai, reports to the Ministry of Commerce. Okay, so it has been given the GI tag status, which means it has a lot of authenticity involved and attached to it. Okay, now understand it this way. In India, scroll paintings essentially were the whole, say, responsibility or well, basically enjoyed by the masses. If you remember this figure that I painted in front of you, where you have a tree, okay, where you have a tree, the branch on that, this scroll painting is attached to. Then you had the villagers gathered around, enjoy the scroll painting. At the same time, all of this was now, say, supplemented with music and dance. Okay, guys? Now, that time you didn't have internet and Facebook and Instagram and Telegram. None of that existed, which means this was also a form of entertainment or enjoyment for the people. Now, compare that to China. Scroll paintings in India, well, it's a thing for the masses, enjoyed by the masses. But in China, this was associated with nobility. Okay, so therein is the difference of interpretation that a student needs to have, and a very important point that one can go ahead and amalgamate in their answers. That yes, scroll paintings in China were the complete, say, responsibility totally enjoyed by the nobility, whereas in India it was the complete opposite. Okay, now let's go forward and take a look at what exactly is it. So what we understand, in India, you have each region and village that has its own scroll painting traditions. Okay, each region has its own scroll painting that depicts the stories of the local area, often intertwined with, say, stories of epics or Puranas or, say, ancient texts. The same thing applies to Chariot scroll painting also. Okay, so Rajasthan we know for Papuji Ki Pad and the Dev Narayan Katha. You also have the legendary stories of Dhola and Maru that are depicted in scroll paintings. Okay, in Goa you are looking at the Dasavatara. Maharashtra has Pinguli and Chitrakatha traditions. Okay, again Maharashtra and Gujarat also have the sophisticated tradition called the Prashasti Patra. Okay, now the informed students again will know that this is a term that is often used even today. Okay, for example, today when, say, someone is given or bestowed with the honors of, say, the Padma Awards, okay, the People's Padma, now that it is known as, okay, so the person receives it from the Honorable President of India in the Darbar Hall of Rashtrapati Bhavan, okay, and along with, say, all the gifts and all the awards and prizes that is given in terms of, say, Padma Vibhushan, Padma Bhushan, or whichever way, okay, along with that a Prashasti Patra is also given. Okay, it's a certificate that you have been given the Padma Awards that owes its tradition to the Prashasti Patra, that is the sophisticated scroll painting that originated out of Maharashtra and Gujarat. Okay, you also have the Pattachitra traditions, very, very famous, okay, coming from the states of primarily Odisha, and nowadays you also find certain variants of that now being prepared in southern Bengal. Okay, so these are the various types of scroll paintings that already exist. Add to that our Chariot scroll painting. Okay, Pranjul, I will, yes, you will hear that on that, you will have an update on that soon. Jairin, good morning. Kalyan, yes, absolutely, the Meritorious Work Award, the part of the Padma Awards, you find that the Prashasti Patra is also given to those awardees. And where does it get its origin from? Well, the traditions of Maharashtra and Gujarat. Okay, So now local temple art traditions and the kalamkari tradition. Now this is where you get the whole idea of the inspiration that is taken for the Chariot scroll painting. So once again, like I told you, the stories not just limited to say the epics or the Puranas, but also stories of daily life. All of this incorporated in the Chariot scroll painting. Okay. And you find that the Golconda Sultanate, again, very important in terms of say the history of Andhra and Telangana, okay, modern day Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, but thereafter, before that it was the same, okay. So this is where it gets its inspiration from. So let's look at it. Local temple art traditions and the Kalamkari tradition across Golconda Sultanate in particular. You had the graphic art traditions of Deccan, South India. All of these were the major influences that eventually made sure that Chariot scroll painting grew at a certain point of time. Okay, let's go forward and take a look at the novel type of storytelling that Chariot scroll painting is. Now, it became an inseparable part of the profession of storytelling, the balladeer community known as Kaki Padagolu. Remember, I just told you that you had scrolls that were hung on, say, trees, and these were accompanied by, say, music and dance, all for the enjoyment of the villagers, right? So the music and dance part is the Kaki Padagolu, right? So they displayed the scrolls and accompanied by music and dance, went from village to village, entertaining the villagers. Again, a form of storytelling, a form of entertainment, a form of engaging communities together. Okay, so the scroll would go up like a film roll, generally about 3 feet in width, went about 40 to 45 feet in length. Now here it is. Have a look at this. Do you see these individual demarcations that are made? You see these borders that are made between each? These are essentially the floral borders. Okay, and eventually you find that they are hung from a tree and taken up eventually. So you have a continuous form of storytelling that is going on. Okay, so depending on the length of the story, you can expect it to go around for around 40 to 45 feet. And a floral border in the middle separates the panels, while the linear narrative is demonstrated by holding in both hands or suspending it from a tree. Okay, so now what are you supposed to understand from here? Firstly, please understand number one, which state does it belong to? Number two, what is the status of the Chariot scroll painting? So you now know that it is GI, it has been given GI tag. At the same time, please understand and quickly link it with the different types of scroll paintings that are being operationalized in India. Okay, so please once again go ahead and have a look at it. Papuji Ki Pad, Dev Narayan Katha, and the stories of Dhola and Maru that are in Rajasthan. Goa had Dasavatara, Maharashtra Pinguli and Chitrakatha. Maharashtra and Gujarat also had Prashasti Patra, and you had the Pattachitra paintings, primarily originate from Odisha and now West Bengal. Okay, with that information, my dear students, let's have a look at this question now. Right? So the instruments, yes, Kalyan. So you're looking at cymbals, you're looking at drums, the locally available instruments, Kalyan. Okay, in terms of the Kaki Patagolu, right? When you're looking at this particular, so the instruments that you're looking at say cymbals, okay, you're looking at drums, and whatever was locally available. Please understand, Kalyan, that eventually what we're looking at is that this art form was enjoyed by the masses, right? And so say as compared to the other forms of storytelling, there is not a lot of say linearity attached to it. A lot of it was the immediate understanding of those who were playing it. So whatever was locally available was used. The whole point was that storytelling and entertainment needs to be provided to the villagers. Now cut to say 2023. What has changed? No more do you find say these scroll paintings of 40 to 45 feet in length. Why? Because again, people have different sorts of entertainment modes now. What has though changed is that these individual demarcations, they are now sold as say the Chariot paintings now. So the scroll painting is, although it is a part, it is traditionally preserved and it's a part of our heritage, okay? But in terms of the commercial aspect of it, no more do you find say the scroll paintings of 40 to 45 length being put forward in the market. It is normally the smaller paintings, okay, that are now marketed as the Chariot paintings, right? So let's look at this question, guys, very quickly. Number one, Chariot paintings or scroll are made in vivid colors with red being predominantly used. Statement 2. Chariot paintings or scroll seek amalgamation of tales from epics and Puranas intertwined with scenes of daily life. And C. Chariot paintings and scrolls are made on cotton cloth. Now here is the hint to your answer. Have a look at the material that is used here, and therein lies your answer. Okay, so identify the incorrect statements. Now what are you going to do? I have questions from say 1 to question 6 today. Answer all of them in the comment box. The correct answers get featured tomorrow morning 6:30. More than that, I would request you very quickly that if you engage in this process every morning, 45 minutes, 3 topics, 6 questions, what you find is eventually, say in a period of 4, 5, 6, 7 odd weeks, your knowledge now starts to compound. You understand the essence of question solving, which is the whole point of the UPSC Prelims examination at least. Okay, so go ahead, engage with this exercise and you will see an immediate benefit that will come out of it. Let's look at question 2 now. Chariot, Andhra Pradesh, Kalamkari, Punjab, Madhubani, Jharkhand, and Thanka in Arunachal Pradesh. Now these are art forms, painting forms. Go ahead, which state is primarily responsible, or where do you find these kind of particular art forms or paintings that have been listed here? Okay, are they correctly matched or not? You will let me know in the comment box below. The right answer for this will be discussed in tomorrow morning's class first thing. Right. Question 3 then. The GI tag, as I told you, granted by the GI tag registry headquartered in Chennai. But which ministry does the GI tag registry report to? Is it Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Rural Development, Ministry of Home, or none of the above? Let me know your answers, guys. Go ahead, take part in this exercise. Okay, that was the Chariot scroll painting explained to you in less than what? 20 odd minutes. Okay. This is where you go ahead and connect with me if you have any particular doubts regarding any topic that we do today. Okay, let's move forward to the second topic that I have for you now. So India's reservoir levels. What has been observed, my dear friends? August 2023. Okay. The hottest year on record for 120 years. In fact, the rainfall that has been observed has been the least in the last 120 years, which has a direct bearing on a developing economy, on a country like ours. Okay, so let's look at it now. The facts of the case. August 2023 has seen an unprecedented rainfall deficit, close to 36% rainfall deficiency, as compared to say the last year, 2022. So 1/3 of the rainfall is already less as compared to last year. Okay, which is why you find that the live water levels across say the 150 reservoirs in India. Okay, and all of this is measured real time by the Central Water Commission, an attached office of the Ministry of Water, basically Jal Shakti Ministry. Okay, so an attached office of the Ministry of Water. So the CWC is tasked with making sure that they have real-time information regarding the water levels across all of these 150 reservoirs. Now, because we are experiencing a rainfall deficit, obviously and consequently you find that the water levels in all of these reservoirs has seen a drop. But has it been a uniform drop? Not exactly. Because again, rainfall, say in the southern part of India and in the northeastern part of India, have been observed differently. We'll take a look at that. Number 1, as per the Central Water Commission, live water storage status has seen a drop by 23%. The southern region, South India, has seen a rainfall deficiency of 60%, and thus it has lowest storage level of 49%. Okay, only half of those reservoirs have been filled. Whereas the eastern region, primarily you're looking at the northeastern region, which has seen normal rainfall so far, which means it is expected to go ahead and have the normal amount of water that it can hold. What does that tell you? That say the deficiency of monsoon up until now has not been uniform, which is why you find that the reservoir levels and the water that they hold is also not uniform. Okay, therein is your first learning. Let's go forward now. So the reservoir levels, the highly deficient levels so far. Now what is expected of you? Okay, I'm going to give you the river basins that are seeing a deficit. Your job is to go ahead and figure out the river basin and say the various tributaries and distributaries that are a part of those river basins. Okay, so let's look at it. Pennar Basin in Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh and the Mahanadi Basin in Chhattisgarh and Odisha. The highly deficient water levels have been observed. What does that tell you? That rainfall has been extremely scarce in these regions. Okay. Thereafter, you have the deficient levels just below that. So you're looking at Subarnarekha, Brahmani, Vaitarni basins in Jharkhand, West Bengal and Odisha, the Kaveri Basin in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, Mahi Basin in Western India, and the Krishna Basin in Maharashtra, Karnataka and Telangana. Okay. This is where you are finding less than normal rainfall, which is why that correlates to less than normal water levels. Now, please understand a variability of roughly 20%. Okay, a 20% variability in reservoir levels is normal. You do not fret a lot, say if last year, if you had say 100 liters of water in your reservoir, if this year also, if you had say normal rainfall, and even then if you had just say 80 liters of water in your reservoir, that's not a cause for concern. That's fine, expect it. More than that is where say you start to worry. And in terms of say the highly deficient, you're looking at almost cut down by half or more. Okay. Now the ramifications of this, the aware civil service student will be able to grasp immediately, and we'll discuss that in the next 2-3 minutes. Okay. So the consequences. First, because you have say less water right now in your reservoirs in August, which means your rabi crops, the rabi irrigation is going to be completely affected. Okay. You're looking at less rainfall, which means you're expecting more heat, and thus you and I will be switching on our ACs, our coolers, all of that a lot more, which means you require more power generation. That's not going to happen. So that transcends into what? You are going to be burning fossil fuel, which means your energy import bill gets higher again. Okay. So that is one consequence. At the same time, you're looking at a demand-supply mismatch that has so arisen because of this less rainfall. Now, what are the causes of less rainfall? We'll seek to understand that very quickly. Okay. But the consequences of the falling water levels in the reservoirs has to be grasped immediately by any student. Okay. And number 3, the water supply for households, environmental consequences, all of them being observed. So you have say areas in metropolitan cities that have say run out of water, that are hitherto not finding the amount of water that they need for their daily sustenance, which means they're having to rely on the third-party vendors. You know, you have these water tankers, water mafia that we now know as, okay, that has emerged. Why? Because well, less rainfall, which is why you do not have more water to go ahead and distribute amongst the population. Okay, so the immediate consequences noted here, right? Now let's go ahead and understand why is the drop happening. What is the primary reason? Okay, number 1, obviously El Nino, and what you're finding is that the Indian Ocean dipole that was say going to balance out the effects of El Nino, that hasn't happened so far. All right, so let's look at it. According to the IMD, El Nino was present during August 2023 and expected to continue till September, and is expected to strengthen in the coming days. Okay. Before I go forward, for those of you who are watching me live, can you very quickly let me know which ministry controls the IMD? Yes, which ministry is responsible for the IMD? Very quickly let me know, right? So the IMD has forecasted that rainfall in September will not likely be more than 10% deficient. However, the threat of El Nino in the equatorial Pacific Ocean is gaining strength, right? And because of that, you find that, well, the problem has not gone away. It will only exacerbate in the coming days. Okay. Now, what is El Nino? If you have trouble understanding that, well, I'll give you 4 pointers that will straight away help you understand El Nino in the shortest possible time. Okay. It has to be understood in a sequence. Okay. Most books will not explain the concepts to you in a sequence, which is why the difficulty of understanding so arises. So we'll understand that in a few moments now. The IOD, what is the Indian Ocean Dipole? The Indian Ocean Dipole, difference in sea surface temperature, the SST is measured between say the eastern Indian Ocean, or you're looking at say the Arabian Sea versus the western Indian Ocean. And this difference in sea surface temperature eventually figures out whether we have a positive Indian Ocean Dipole or a negative Indian Ocean Dipole, and thus the direct bearing on Indian monsoons. Okay. So the IOD was expected to turn favorable but has not had much impact so far. Coder, you're absolutely correct. Good. Your neighbor, Gadia, Badia, Kalyan, correct. Good. Okay. You should be aware of the ministries, guys. So let's look at it. El Nino, number 1. So the 5 factors, okay. How do you go ahead and understand El Nino in the shortest possible time? So I'm going to give you 5 factors. Okay. If you would so like, go ahead and make a quick note of it, as that will help you understand and conceptualize the whole thing in the shortest possible time. Right. So number 1, what you're looking is strong trade winds. Okay. Now these are not the conditions, by the way. This is just the factors. So let me just correct it before the students get confused. Okay. Let's look at the factors that you need to keep in mind so as to figure out in any condition, whether it's an El Nino, a La Nina, or what is happening exactly. You need to figure out just 4 aspects here. Number 1, you figure out whether the trade winds are strong or weak. Consequently, you figure out whether your Western Pacific pool is strong or weak. Correct? After you've figured out whether your Western Pacific pool is strong or weak, you figure out whether your Peru current is strong or weak. Okay. After you've figured out the status of these 3, then you figure out what exactly is the status of the mascarene high. And thus, if you have figured out the status of the mascarene high, well, monsoonal status is quite easy to get after that. So let's understand it in the shortest possible time now. Okay. Here is your Southern America. Here is Australia. Here is India. Okay. Now in a normal year, what you would expect? Straight away, let's do the basics first. In the normal year, you expect that your trade winds that go ahead and converge near the equator from both the sides, they would push water off the coast of Southern America, say westwards, which means a point will come when you will have a large pool of water that would have accumulated just near Australia. Correct? Which means your Western Pacific pool is here. Now, if you know that the Western Pacific pool is here, your warm water has just accumulated near Australia, which means you expect low pressure here. If you have low pressure here, which means your wind starts rising, cools, condenses, forms clouds, and it rains here. Correct? Once it has rained here, now you know that you have this cold wind. What should it do now? What are its options? Its only option is to dive. Okay. Where is it going to dive? One arm dives on top of Southern America, which is why you find high pressure here. The other arm dives towards the Mascarene High, an island just near Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. Okay. So once you understand that here you have high pressure, here you had low pressure, which means, well, this movement is cyclical and is complete, which is essentially the basis of my Walker cell. Okay. Now, once you've understood this concept that is happening in, say, the Pacific, if this is clear, then the Indian Ocean concept can be understood in the shortest possible time. Now that you understand that you have cold descending wind here, which means your high pressure can be observed. So if you have high pressure, which means that the air would want to rush out from here and find an area of low pressure to go to, because, well, high pressure to low pressure is the direction of wind movement. Okay. Once this condition is fulfilled, you find that wind rushes out, hits the Horn of Africa, crosses the equator, Coriolis force comes into effect, deflects it towards the right, and thus it is straight away headed into India. These are the conditions of a normal year. What changes in El Nino? Well, what changes? Number one, your strong trade winds do not happen. No, that does not happen anymore. Which means your Western Pacific pool that was supposed to be formed near Australia. Let's do it in a diagrammatical manner so that it is easier for you to grasp and understand. Okay. What I just explained to you was the normal year conditions that you will expect. But in an El Nino year, what changes? Let's understand this. Same concept once again, Southern America, Australia, India. Okay. Now, let's go one by one. Your strong trade winds not happening anymore, which means your Western Pacific pool that would have ideally come on Australia, on the west coast of Australia, no more coming. Okay. Which means what? that the low pressure that you would observe here, that is not as low as you would expect. Okay, the high pressure that you would observe here, not as high as you would expect. In fact, the converse happens. Okay, because you do not have the strong trade winds anymore from both sides, so the Western Pacific pool has not been formed here. No, didn't happen. Which is why you find that high pressure conditions are observed over Australia, low pressure over Southern America, which means the same concept now: warm rising air, latent heat of condensation, rainfall, which means you find that the Patagonia Desert, the Atacama Desert see a lot of rainfall. Now that is not liked. Why? Because, well, it's a desert. Okay, it's not expected to get a lot of rainfall. But in terms of Australia, the consequences are a lot difficult. Now, which was expected? That's in a normal year you would have low pressure here and rainfall here. But because of high pressure conditions that has now come in because of the El Nino, no more rainfall, which means your mascarene high that would have been higher in normal conditions, not there anymore. Okay, if your mascarene high is weak, which means the wind that so goes out from here weaker, which means the whole condition that leads to the formation and onset of my monsoons into the Indian mainland, well, slower. Okay, which means my monsoons are negatively affected. If my monsoons are negatively affected, well, my reservoir levels drop. If my reservoir levels drop, we don't have water for irrigation, we don't have water for households, we don't have water for, say, all the other purposes. Okay, your power generation capabilities are hit, which means you're going to go ahead and fulfill the demand-supply mismatch, not by, say, hydroelectricity, but by going ahead and burning fossil fuels, which means your energy import bill goes high. Why did India have to spend more money on giving us power? Well, because the weak trade winds in equatorial Pacific made sure that the El Nino conditions developed. That, in essence, my friends, is El Nino, the shortest possible time and the most succinct explanation that can be provided. Okay. Now, if you've understood this, please understand that El Nino is to do with the Pacific plus the Indian Ocean. Okay, because again, the mascarene high is off the coast of Madagascar here in the southern Indian Ocean. Okay, that in essence is El Nino. What is La Nina? Well, if you have the regular conditions, so you have high pressure here, you have low pressure here, normally that's what you would expect. Well, these conditions, the regular conditions, are only bettered. So if you are expecting, say, 10 millimeter rainfall over Australia, for example, 10 millimeter rainfall over Australia, in a La Nina year, you are going to expect 30 millimeter rainfall, which means your low pressure there is higher, which means my mascarene high, the descending air wind, the descending wind that would so drop here, the descending air, that will be better in a La Nina year. If my mascarene high is better than, say, a normal year, which means my monsoons in India will be bumper, to the point that you can even observe flooding in some places. Okay, that in a sense is La Nina. What is the Indian Ocean dipole? Well, you go ahead and measure the differences between two areas. Okay, let's look at Indian Ocean dipole very quickly. So in Indian Ocean dipole, what you're essentially looking at is, number one, here is India, here is, say, Indonesia. Okay, you go ahead and measure the sea surface temperature in these two areas, across these two areas. Okay, so in a positive Indian Ocean dipole, what you find is that the temperature of the Arabian Sea is higher than the temperature of Bay of Bengal. Now, NCERT geography, physical geography, standard 11th will tell you that, say, tropical cyclones develop in those sea surface temperatures, say around 26, 27 and higher degree temperatures, not in cold waters. So if you are expecting that the temperature of the Arabian Sea is higher, which means cyclone generation is higher here in the Arabian Sea. And if cyclone generation is higher in the Arabian Sea, that has a direct bearing on Indian monsoons, as it helps the onset of Indian monsoons once again into the Indian mainland. So what does that tell you? If you in 1 year, if you had El Nino and if you experience positive Indian Ocean dipole, what is expected? That, well, it could possibly balance each other out and you could possibly have a normal rainfall. However, if you have El Nino and a negative Indian Ocean dipole, in which case you find that the temperature of the Bay of Bengal is higher than the temperature of Arabian Sea, which means you have cyclones now developing in the Bay of Bengal, which means once again your monsoonal winds are going to be affected, possibly pushed out. So the worst condition that India can face, El Nino plus negative Indian Ocean dipole, that can in fact put us at the risk of extreme drought. Okay, so these are the three concepts that we discussed in the shortest possible time, but the understanding that you have to carry forward from this, that the weather phenomena is easy to understand. Okay, it's not rocket science, but then the correlation of these weather phenomena on, say, the economy of a country, on the sectoral effect that it has, say, on agriculture, on industry, on our import bill, on our energy generation capabilities, need to be understood and quickly grasped, especially from the mains perspective, right? So that was El Nino, La Nina, and positive and negative Indian Ocean dipole, right? Once again, what I suggest is, please understand this in sequence. So if you have, say, A, B, C, and D, if all of these are strong, you can expect your E to be strong too. Okay, this is the best and possibly the most succinct manner in which you can revise your El Nino, La Nina multiple times. Okay, right? So let's look at this question, my dear friends. Question number 4 that I have for you. The Central Water Commission, established in 1945 on the recommendations of Baba Saheb Ambedkar, right? Statement 1. Statement 2. The CWC, responsible for full implementation of the Indus Water Treaty. And Statement 3. The CWC reports to the MOEFCC, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Okay. Why am I asking you to go ahead and solve this? Because eventually the point of this whole exercise is that you should be able to solve questions, not just from what I have taught you, but also I expect that you go and spend, say, 5 to 10 minutes of research, a basic research, on the organizations that are responsible for implementation of projects, okay, or are responsible for, say, these treaties. It's very important from an examination perspective, okay. So go ahead, answer these questions too. You will identify the incorrect statements in this question. Statement question 5, let's look at this. Number 1, El Nino indicates low oscillations between oceans of northern and southern hemisphere. Now please understand oscillations, okay. Let me explain this too, since we are doing it, why not? Alright. So oscillations are essentially to do with two areas. Here is Port Darwin in Australia, and here is Port Tahiti in Polynesia. Okay. Eastern hemisphere, western hemisphere. You go ahead, once again measure the differences. In a normal year, you know that, say again, water is moving from high pressure to low pressure, air is moving from high pressure to low pressure. So you expect this to be there in a normal year. But in an El Nino year, you expect this to be again considerably lower, this to be considerably lower again, right? And in a La Nina year, you expect your high pressure to be higher, your low pressure to be higher, correct? So this is what you go ahead and calculate. The difference of this gives you the measure of the oscillation. What is oscillation? Eventually, it's like a pendulum that swings, okay? And so this sea surface temperature, or this variability that you measure between the Darwin port and Tahiti port, tells you the exact measure of El Nino, La Nina or normal conditions. Low oscillations means low difference. If you have low difference, which means your pressure differences are not strong, which means El Nino is being observed. If you have high difference, which means pressure differences are high, which means La Nina is being observed. And all of that is, my dear students, relative. Please understand, these are not absolute concepts, because eventually these high pressure, low pressure have to be measured vis-a-vis a normal year. Only then can you figure out whether the oscillation is high or the oscillation is low. Okay, let me explain it in a simpler manner. For example, in a normal year, here is Darwin, here is Tahiti. Okay, now you expect, say, in a normal year, 100 bars of pressure here, okay, and say 50 bars of pressure here. Fair enough. So my difference, 50. In an El Nino year, okay, are you able to grasp this, guys? Let me know in the chat very quickly. Bulbul, good morning. How are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay. Now, in a El Nino year, for example, what you expect is that this 100 bars has now reduced and become, say, 50 bars. Okay. Whereas in the Darwin port, say, this has now gone ahead and become, say, 20 bars, which means 30, Whereas in a La Nina year, this has gone ahead and become say 130, this has become say 70. So 60 difference. So low oscillation, El Nino. High oscillation, La Nina. And how are you measuring the oscillation? Relative to a normal year. That gives you the whole essence of whether, well, El Nino aa raha hai ya La Nina aa raha hai. Okay, so that is Enzo. Now, how many concepts did I explain to you in what time? 45 minutes. Yes, you will find videos that span up to 2 hours to explain this basic concept. Okay, time is of the essence for a civil service aspirant. You shouldn't be wasting 2 hours to understand a basic concept like this. Okay, so go ahead, answer these questions after this discussion. El Nino indicates low oscillations between oceans of northern and southern hemisphere. Bear in mind that I've told you the difference is between the eastern and western hemisphere. Okay, the eastern and western hemisphere. So in terms of, I've given you the answer essentially. This is where the question will look to eventually catch you. These are the two variabilities that can be only put forward in a question and made to confuse the students. Okay, so El Nino, low oscillations in northern and southern hemisphere. El Nino, is it high oscillations between eastern and western hemisphere? Or El Nino coupled with negative IOD brings devastating drought to India? My friends, we have discussed the answers to all of these three. If you have any doubts, go ahead, revise the last 20 minutes of this discussion or reach out to me personally and I can go ahead and try to explain to you in a simpler format. Okay, identify the correct statements for me. Right, the last discussion for this morning, number 1 is the Tonga Volcano. You see this particular GIF that I have gone ahead and quickly lifted for your perusal from the NASA website. Okay, so the Tonga Islands, firstly you have to understand, located in the Pacific Ring of Fire. Okay, Pacific Ocean has to be understood in detail if you are looking to conquer geography from the prelims and mains perspective. Okay, so the Pacific Ring of Fire encircles the Pacific Ocean basin, characterized by increased volcanic and seismic activity. Now what you find here that you have underwater volcanoes. Okay, and these submarine volcanoes are, well, of two types. For example, these submarine volcanoes, you could have the volcano that the whole magma that is so coming out and eventually now being called a lava. It could be coming out slowly or it could be coming out at a relatively fast velocity. In these two conditions, the consequences are completely different. If it comes out slowly, no harm done, all good, thank you very much. But if it comes out quickly, you are looking at almost a bomb-like structure. You know, the energy that is produced can be compared to a huge bomb. What does that happen? How does that happen? Let's understand. So first, the Tonga Volcano, volcanic eruption made up of two small deserted islands. The last 2 decades it has erupted regularly, and now the understanding. The fuel-coolant interaction is one of the reasons for its high explosive nature. Even though it's an underwater volcano, so fissure-type eruption is not exactly observed here. Fissure-type eruption, which eventually led to the formation of, say, the Deccan Traps, okay, wherein you had lava flowing out and going far and wide, less viscous lava, okay, wanting to go far and wide, which is what you see formed our Deccan Traps. In this case, what you find is that when the magma, it slowly rises into the sea water, a thin layer of steam occurs between the magma and water. So no problems. Here, if it is slowly rising, no harm done. It comes out, flows away. But if the magma rapidly meets the water, okay, if the rate of discharge of the magma from the interior of the earth is high, in that case what you find is that steam layers are soon destroyed, which is why you find that the hot magma is put in direct contact with the water. This essentially leads to the high explosive nature. Okay, the explosive nature with an energy that can be compared to that of a bomb. That has been the essence of the Tonga volcanic island. Okay, so once again, the understanding for you that fissure type is obviously understood to be the quiet type. Okay, that obviously underwater submarine volcanoes can be quiet and can also be quite explosive. When are they explosive? When you find that the rate of discharge is very fast, which means that the layer of steam that holds the whole energy within it, that is destroyed. Once that is destroyed, eruption so follows. Okay, which is why you find that this was observed in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Now, when you have eruptions like these, there are two more concepts that you need to understand. One, any eruption like this in the short term leads to, say, a short-term cooling of the Earth's atmosphere. When you had, say, Mount Krakatoa that erupted, okay, so huge amount of debris, pyroclastic material was let out into the atmosphere. Aerosols were also let out, and you know that aerosols are known for trapping heat. But in the short term, they go ahead and say cool the Earth's atmosphere. Okay, cloud formation is seen. But in the long term, these very aerosols go ahead and trap the terrestrial heat, the outgoing terrestrial heat from the surface of the Earth, thereby making it warmer. Okay, so in terms of the climate effect of these type of volcanoes, short term, good, long term, bad, right? Okay, let's look at this question, guys. Question number 6 that I have for you. Stratovolcanoes, are they known as shield volcanoes? Now, in terms of volcano, when you're looking to study for the examination, it's two types that you're looking at, say shield and composite. Okay. Please understand that you have to quickly go ahead and link it to the viscosity of the magma. If you're not doing this, if you're unaware, say the viscosity of the magma's correlation with the type of landforms or the type of structure that is developed, then your preparation is not up to the mark. You need to go ahead and have a quick correlation of whether high viscous magma leads to explosive eruptions, or whether it is quiet, or whether low viscous magma travels far and wide and is explosive or not. You will let me know your answers in the comment box below. Okay. Plutonic igneous rocks. Now, what are plutonic? Here it is. If this is your surface of the Earth, if this is where your igneous rocks are getting formed beneath the surface of the Earth, plutonic. If they are formed on the surface of the Earth after cooling, they are called extrusive. Okay. Now, you know igneous rocks have crystals. Okay. Non-fossilized. So, if they have crystals, which one has higher crystals? Which one has bigger crystals? Does the plutonic rock have bigger crystals, or the extrusive rock have bigger crystals? One way to understand that, crystals are subject to weathering and erosion. Okay. That is common sense, common knowledge. So, if your rocks are below the surface of the Earth, which means weathering and erosion is non-existent here, which means your crystals are of bigger size. Whereas extrusive rocks, weathering and erosion happening full time, full scale, which means your crystals are of smaller size because they are getting weathered continuously. Okay, so I've given you the answers. I don't know what's the point of these questions anymore. Okay, so plutonic igneous rocks, do they have smaller crystals as compared to, say, the extrusive igneous rocks? The intensity of an earthquake, okay, you will let me know. I'm not giving you the answer to this now, enough. The intensity of an earthquake, is it measured on the Richter scale or on the Mercalli scale? And where is the intensity measured from, the epicenter or the focus? You will let me know the answers in the comment box. And if you have any particular doubts, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to address it for you. Okay? Okay, my dear children, that completes the questions, the topics that I had for you today. I didn't have any questions that I put forward in the last class yesterday, but I did find Praveen, Ulfat, Hirak and Pranjul. They left me messages, and feedback is always welcome. Okay, good feedback, good. Negative feedback, even more welcome. Okay, because eventually the whole point of this exercise early morning is to benefit those souls who are watching this. Okay, so once again, to those 4 individuals, Praveen, Ulfat, Hirak and Pranjul, thank you for your feedback. I have taken them on board. I've made a note of them, and you will see changes incorporated in due regard. To the rest, answer the questions in the comment box. If you have any particular feedback for me, leave that for me too. And hopefully, we'll have a successful run in the run up to UPSC 2024. Okay. All right, my dear students, my dear children, that completes today's editorial edge. You will find the PDF of this whole lecture uploaded at noon on my Telegram channel. Once again, if you have any doubts, let me know. And before you go ahead and quickly log off, please do consider leaving me a like and share it with your friends. Those of you who might have, say, a conceptual understanding or no conceptual understanding of El Nino, La Nina, Enzo, IOD. Okay, this will benefit those individuals too. Okay, on that note, it's a wrap. Till I see you tomorrow morning, 6:30 AM with another set of important topics. Because remember, topical understanding helps you clear prelims. Mere reading of article does not. Okay, Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow morning 6:30. Bye.